Okay.
I'm gonna make a supersonic man out of you. That's the only part that matters.
Nailed it. All right. Something in that will be our intro. So,
Like
literally.
literally.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
I'm Momo, and I run Momo's Bookshelf.
I'm Riley, and I run Riley Tries Hobbies on Instagram.
And Riley has a really big announcement.
I do. So, not this podcast, hashtag OBS, but next podcast, I bought a microphone. So, the sound quality will be so much better.
But for today, we will embrace that it sounds like Riley is calling in from across the world.
Cue excitement. Woo!
Our topic for today.
Is Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Can you give us a summary of this book?
Yes, I can. It'll be my honor. So, Red, White, and Royal Blue is a classic love story of how the son of the President of the United States ends up falling in love with the Prince of England. And it all has to stay secret because, obviously, it's the son and the prince. They're both guys. So, not only was the story itself the cutest, but it also covered big topics like being gay in the modern world and how it still brings difficulties, self-discovery, your purpose in the world, your future career, one's sexuality, and just honestly navigating through the feelings of love when life seems to complicate it at every turn, as well as fighting for what you believe in. It was good. It was good. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, so our general theme here is we're going to be doing a book and movie comparison. Momo and I have watched this movie 4 times,
Oh, for sure. Maybe 5.
maybe 5. I think Riley's clocking in at 1, so we'll get her there.
I have done exactly one time in 2 parts because I fell asleep. But that's not because of the movie, that's because I was tired.
It's okay. You've already disclaimed your sleeping tendencies, so we Riley, what did you think general high level of the book?
Overall, I loved this book. It was just like a really good general romance book. Like, I don't know, it gave me the same feelings as when I watched 27 Dresses or The Proposal. Just like overall good rom-com energy, and I really appreciated that. The movie was more on the level of like The Kissing Booth, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a different level, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd really like to throw in about like the summary of the book and everything that's going on, and I said this for Fourth Wing, so I'm repeating myself, but this book had a lot of diversity and I really liked that. I loved that their identities were like truly played out throughout the entire book rather than just say like Alex being quote very tan and like never confirming whether or not he's Mexican and he's just like questionably exotic or something, but instead like they pull his heritage throughout like the entire book and use it to build his character. The other thing I appreciate about the identities of the characters, like they read like 20 somethings, you're not like reading this and being like, yeah, the person who wrote this is out of touch, but like it felt really relatable. It felt hip. And I don't know if that automatically makes it unhip if I'm saying that as like a 28-year-old, but like the Harry Potter references, they got me in my soul. Love the depth of the book and the wholesomeness of the movie personally. Um, with that, I do want to say that this episode of like literarily is not spoiler friendly. Otherwise, or in other words, there's going to be spoilers. So, like, please pop off now if you don't want to hear any spoilers. We're doing a book to movie comparison, so we're going to be talking about everything that went down in this storyline. So, use the next 3 seconds to pop off if you want to pop off.
Okay, with that spoiler warning, I just want to put out there that the guy who played Alex, Taylor Zakar Perez, he is a very, very attractive looking man. And that
Retweet.
made me very happy.
Retweet.
Well, on that note, I'm Team Nick 100%. Which is the actor that played Henry.
overall, the movie and the changes they made from the book, I just thought they were really well thought out, and they kept true to the love story, which made me happy. Like, yes, there was changes. There's always going to be changes because a movie's only 2 hours long, but I thought they did a really good job with those changes.
But yeah, no, I fully agree with everything that you said, Riley. Like, they removed the little things that we grew to love about Alex and Henry, you know, like their favorite, like pajamas that they would wear or whatever. But in the movie, they still incorporated those things, like how we got to enjoy the scene of Get Low the way that they did, which is the New Year's Eve scene. And just overall, they still had those like background portrayals of those things that we got to meet and love in the book.
Yeah, so obviously this is a movie adaptation of a book, and the book is always longer. It's like always better. I think generally that's our consensus here, is that we would recommend the book over the movie, but some like simplification has to happen when you're having that transition. And one of the most obvious immediate simplifications of the storyline was that a lot of the characters were rolled into each other. You had Alex's sister June rolled into Nora. You had his history with Raph and Liam rolled into one character, a journalist in the movie. There was a downplaying of Henry's younger sister's role. Henry's mom and grandma were also switched into one individual. But like overall, I thought the simplification of all the characters in the book really helped strengthen the rom-com that we were like turning on Amazon Prime to see. Like, I just wanted to see this cheesy, cute little rom-com with this happy little gay romance where they were falling in love, and like folding all these characters into each other really allowed us to like just kind of like focus on the cuteness of that relationship and just like the complete cheese of it. I don't know. I thought it was a good strategic choice.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I definitely miss June as a character, but I understood why they combined the characters. I don't think it took away from that romance, like you were saying, Alicia.
Yeah, I have to say I don't disagree, because like you said, we were able to focus on the actual romance story and Alex and Henry at the center of everything. But I really was sad that they downplayed Henry's sister Beatrice so much, because in the book, she was literally part of their friend group. Like, she went to Texas with them and hung out with them. And Nora was a little bit more of the background character versus June was obviously a little bit more forward facing. But I just feel like combining them made me a little sad, just because they were such vital characters. As well as like the combination of Raph and Liam being into one, because we had to miss in the movie Alex calling Liam and being like, "Oh, my bad, I didn't know I was bisexual, LOL." And Liam being with his boyfriend at the time, like, "It's okay, I understand." So kind of going back to like what I was saying a couple minutes ago, just like we still got those little portrayals here and there, but I really still think that they did a good job, because I love the movie. I've watched it 5 times.
Man, on that note, that yeah, Alex like calls up Liam and is like, "My B." That whole like arc of Alex like realizing he is bisexual. I mean, the character complexity obviously also gets simplified when we're transitioning to the movie. Alex's character is a little less complex. Henry's character is a little less complex. But I just loved in the book and in the movie, Alex has a line. Well, he at least thinks it in the book. I don't know exactly. I don't remember how it's communicated in the movie, but he just goes like, "Straight people probably don't spend this much time convincing themselves that they're straight." That just cracked me up. It just like brings in that whole like, you're going through that discovery, you're asking questions of like, am I jealous of this person? Do I like this person? Do I want to be that person? Like, what are these feelings? I'm so confused. And so I don't know. That cracked me up. It's got relevance. I don't know if you've all listened to Olivia Rodrigo's new album, but she has a song on there called Lacey that like pretty much captures that exact sentiment. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious, like the portrayal being there, having that like bi visibility, particularly in like a men loving men relationship, and just like recognizing that being bi is a sexuality. It's not just like you being confused between being straight or gay. And so like that was acknowledged a lot in the book. I don't know, do you guys have anything you want to add on that?
No, I agree. That was like one of my favorite parts of the book, that like we got to see, a little bit of, we got to find out a little bit of what like Henry's journey was. Like, has he always known? Did it kind of come out later? And then Alex obviously finding out and like self-discovering in his way. And just like the support from everybody all around, like no matter if they were straight or part of that community themselves, like everybody kind of had their spiel with it, I guess. So no, perfectly said.
Yeah, and I felt like there's just like the book was really good. The movie did this too, where it just like had positive messaging. Like Alex has this really long speech after there's some emails that are leaked. And it just has a few like really good quotes in it, such as like every queer person has the right to come out on their own terms and the right to not come out at all. And I appreciated how the book was kind of also providing like the support if you're like somebody who's reading it and maybe haven't seen as many like representative relationships to their own feelings and their own sexuality. I don't know. I felt like there's this like really comforting blanket around how it was approached in the book. On the other note of our other main character, Henry, and like the simplification of his character a bit, in the book, Henry has a lot more dilemmas around like his reputation in the tradition of the crown, and he struggles a lot with mental health around that. And I think that piece really got lost in the movie, probably again to just like keep the timeline going. But like Henry has this quote where he says, like, my life is the crown and yours is politics, while he's speaking to Alex. And he concludes with, I will not trade one prison for another. This really captures like that fight that's going on in his mind between like, well, I'm closeted if I'm gay, and then I'm not me if I'm the prince. I don't know. That would really throw you into a spiral, I think. And adding that on top of the fact that, like, in the book, his dad had passed away within the last couple years. It was something like Alex was always struggling with, like, trying to figure out how do you navigate, like, these different down periods that Henry's having. And I don't know, that was like another form of like diversity representation of like mental health that I really appreciated. And that also like caused them to tease out a lot of like what do their roles and like positions mean. So Alex and Henry are like emailing all the time in the book, and it really gets lost in the movie. But part of those email threads are like recognizing other people in history, and particularly in like politics and royalty, who were queer. And a lot of that queer history gets lost in the movie. And it kind of makes me sad because we really lose that impact of the iconic line of like, history, huh? Bet we could make some, which lands so hard in the book and is like so soft and gentle in the movie. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on the complexity of our characters and how they changed between the books and the movies. So I'll get off my soapbox and let us move forward. I just feel like I'm monologuing, so I'm going to stop.
So on a lighter note, getting on my soapbox, still has to do with like the simplifying of the characters, but enough so that we can see, as the readers of the novel who are now watching the movie, the little bits and pieces of Alex and Henry that we fell in love with throughout the book. Just like the random scenes, and I picked a couple to kind of talk about when they're on the phone, and obviously the phone scene in the movie is different from the phone scenes that happen throughout the novel. Show Henry's favorite candy in the background, pajamas that were mentioned in the book, and honestly, just like their mannerisms that were spoken about within the book were showed in the scene, even though the scene was like scripted differently and was happening under different circumstances. And then to make it, a little spicy, they obviously had their little subtle safe sex message with like the safe things and items that are used during spicy moments in your life, to show that even though they were obviously being a little spicy, they were taking health precautions, which is obviously always a good message and was even spoken about in the book too. And then, of course, one of my favorite moments that did not get included in the movie, and I was literally so sad, but it got referenced with Uma Thurman, who played Alex's mom, the president, saying, "Oh, I wish you would have told me or gave me more time. I would have prepped a PowerPoint." But in the book, she did prep the PowerPoint. And it was so funny to me because the title was literally called Exploring Your Sexuality, Healthy But Does It Have to Be with the Prince of England? And then not one of the slides being federal funding, travel expenses, booty calls, and you. Like that would have just made me cackle if I got to see that actually played out in person. But it's fine. I'll have the characters played out in my mind from the book when I read it again.
Man, I think you just skirted over one of the greatest things about the movie, and I need your first reaction. The chemistry between Alex and Henry.
Ugh. It was amazing. You're right. I don't know how I skirted over that. It was so good. Like, they convinced me they were in love in real life. I'm convinced. I don't know if it happened. I don't know if it will happen, but they convinced me. Delulu is the Salulu, I guess.
Okay, if we could go back to the PowerPoint scene though. Well, the not PowerPoint scene in the movie. Like the whole scene with Uma Thurman and Taylor, the guy who plays Alex, made me so incredibly uncomfortable. Like they were on the couch, he was like leaning into her, but it was like not a natural pose. It's like somebody came over and just put his hand on Uma Thurman's leg and Uma Thurman to put her hand on his head and was like, just stay there, just like that, and say your line. It was so weird. Like I honestly think the PowerPoint and the pamphlet scene would have played out better and more naturally because it was just so strange. Like the whole time I was watching it, I was very uncomfortable. Like the book obviously did a much better job of playing out that scene. Like I know there's time constraints and whatnot, but it just wasn't the vibe. I don't know how to describe it other than that.
Man, I cringed through like all the president scenes because I could not handle her southern accent. So I didn't even catch the vibe between the actors. I was just like, ooh, accent.
I agree with Riley. Like, it was so uncomfortable because even in the book, like, Alex and his mom were not like touchy-feely mother-son relationship anyways. Like, you could tell that he was closer to the dad. Like, even though in the book they weren't together, and in the movie they were, like, in both circumstances, he was closer to the dad, and he was not like this body language, touchy, cuddly vibe. Like, I completely agree. It was weird.
All right, so this is going to be an unhinged transition because I don't know how to get off of this one.
No, I'm so sad that we did not see Alex showing up to Henry's house, pissed off when Henry was trying to low-key ghost him, and standing outside of the house or castle or gate or whatever, and literally saying, "Henry, your royal effing highness." Like, I'm so sad that didn't happen.
Yeah, I really needed that happening in some like downpouring rain, like I believe in a thing called love, like blaring in the background. Like that's just what I was imagining the entire time.
Honestly, I guess that could lead us into my other favorite line that has to do with our lovely allies over the pond. When Zara in the movie says, after she catches Alex and Henry in the hotel full of reporters, "I will Brexit your head from your body." Like, that was hilarious to me. Like, way to bring modern history into that. I love it.
Zara's role was so perfectly casted and executed. She became like one of my favorite characters in the movie. And like she was a good character in the book, don't get me wrong, but like loved her in the movie.
Yes, 100%.
Riley, Momo, anything else you'd like to highlight for our book to movie comparison?
I would like to highlight that I did listen to this book. I listened to the audiobook. I did not physically read this book. But just as of note, for listening to the book versus watching the movie, the voice they did for Zara's character in the audiobook just threw me in an entirely different direction. So that threw me off when I watched the movie. But now, like looking back, if I read the book, it would have skewed my view to what she was in the movie. So I find this very interesting.
Anything else you'd want to add on the audiobook since you're the only one that listened to it?
There is. So this is not a starter audiobook by any means. This book has a ton of different characters, which equals a ton of different voices and a ton of different accents. So if you don't normally listen to audiobooks, it will throw you off. If you normally listen to audiobooks, I don't think it's going to bother you. But the narrator definitely has a lot of different people he has to voice. So it just affects how he has to narrate the book. So stay away from it if you're not an audiobook person. If you are an audiobook person, I think it's going to be a-okay for you. Alexis, what was your overall rating of the book and the movie?
So the book, 1,000 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 50 out of 100, or that's wrong, 100 out of 50, whatever you want to call it. It was phenomenal. I loved it. I read it literally in less than a day. As far as the movie, I gave it a solid 4 out of 5, just because, overall, I loved both, enjoyed both thoroughly, but the movies just never do all of the book the full justice that it deserves. But it really did do an amazing job that was, still enjoyable. What about you?
So I very much enjoyed this book. Overall, I would give it a 4 out of 5. Is it the best romance I've ever read? No. Is it one of my favorites of the year? Yes. Overall, it just made me happy. Like, I really looked forward to listening to it every time I was in the car or had anything to do. As for the movie, I would give it a solid 3 out of 10. It's on like a kissing booth level rom-com for me. But like a 5 would be Bridget Jones' Diary. So that is where my scale lands me on the movie. I think if it had a higher budget, it would have definitely like been a lot better. But for what they had, I thought they did a really good job. Like, I'm not mad about it. How about you, Alicia?
The book was no notes for me. Like perfection. Adored Casey's writing and the complexity of the characters. And honestly, the movie is going to go down as a fave for me too. I mean, I've watched it 4 to 5 times. I've like never watched movies a second time. So I think that just means it takes the number one place.
Very interesting. See, so overall, high reviews all around. Now, for our next episode, what we're going to do is incorporate our lovely listeners and followers on the Instagram. This has already been decided. Don't go to our socials right now to vote. But we're going to do a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and we had our listeners and followers vote on that over on Instagram. And we are very excited about it because my favorite books this year have all been by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
So follow us on Instagram at like.literarily if you'd like to participate in any of the future engagement activities that we have going there. We always have a couple follow-up questions after podcasts, figuring out what our next podcast should be. Also, as a reminder, in the description, you can access both Momo's and Riley's Goodreads, so you can get their rankings of any other books that they're reading outside of what we're discussing on this podcast. And on that note, Alexis, what are you reading right now?
I am currently reading another like spooky suspense book called The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. Not sure how you say it, but it's Jeneva.
Riley, how about you?
So for context, I did just finish ACOTAR and Court of Mr. Fury, so I need to take a break so I don't burn myself out on it. But I just started This Time Tomorrow by Anna Straub. That was recommended to me by Megan Tesh, one of our wonderful listeners. And then I'm listening to People We Meet on Vacation.
I love Emily Henry's books. I hope you enjoy that one.
Me too. That's my top two, with Beach Read being first. So that was my other favorite one by her.
And it's been only about 2 weeks or less since we recorded the previous episode. So I am now finishing up the Throne of Glass series. I'm on Kingdom of Ash, the very last book. So I've made a little bit of progress. Very excited to see how this closes out. So thank you everybody for joining us on this month's episode of Like Literarily. Right, that really did just come through as
That's exactly how it sounded.
It's your hotel Wi-Fi. It's not actually your microphone right now. It's not on you.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
I can't help it. The Army sends me places and I have no choice in the matter.
I'm just a potato.
It's very ironic that I'm the one who listens to the audiobooks and has the worst audio quality. I get it, guys. It's really fine.
Man, my little brain hamster on a wheel in my brain was just going Riley sounds like she's on phone audio quality. Riley listens to audiobooks. Does Riley exist in the real world, or is she just in the metaverse?